In the summer of 1997, the waters surrounding the island of Bimini on the western edge of the Bermuda Triangle were a diver's paradise. The sea was a placid sheet of turquoise. The visibility was 100 feet in every direction, and the sun baked the deck of the small dive boat. Among the group of recreational divers preparing their gear was a man named Robert, a 45-year-old architect and an experienced diver who considered these reefs his second home. He'd explored them dozens of times before, and this day felt no different. He descended into the warm, silent world below. The sunlight danced across the vibrant coral gardens. Robert felt the familiar sense of peace wash over him as he navigated the intricate seascape. Noticing a rare parrotfish, he decided to follow it, which led him toward a narrow, winding coral pass away from the main group. He signaled to his buddy that he'd be right back, a casual gesture in a situation that felt completely under control. He swam through the canyon of coral, its walls teeming with life. But when he emerged on the other side, just a minute or two later, the world had changed. He surfaced, expecting to see the dive boat bobbing just 100 yards away. Instead, he saw nothing. The familiar turquoise sea, the brilliant sun, the clear blue sky, it was all gone. In its place was a rolling, silent, and impossibly thick gray mist that clung to the water's surface. It hadn't rolled in. It felt as if it had simply materialized. His shouts were swallowed by the oppressive fog. He screamed for his friends, for the boat, but the sound was deadened, muffled by a suffocating silence he had never experienced on the open ocean. Panic began to set in. No boat, no divers, no horizon, just the chilling gray void. Hours later, a small fishing vessel, miles off its intended course, spotted Robert floating, his gear still on. He was disoriented, exhausted, and babbling about a fog that had appeared from nowhere. The fishermen confirmed there had been no fog reported anywhere in the area. For them, the skies had been perfectly clear all day. Robert swore the fog had felt cold, unnatural, and had somehow pushed him into currents he couldn't explain, carrying him miles in a direction he wasn't swimming. To this day, he insists it wasn't natural weather, but something otherworldly that had selected him, isolated him, and then spit him back out. In 1984, long before GPS made navigation effortless, the fishermen of the Caribbean relied on skill, instinct, and crackling radios. One moonless night, 3 fishing trawlers were working the deep waters of the Puerto Rico Trench, one of the deepest points in the Atlantic and a hotspot for strange activity. The work was grueling, the night was long, and the only sounds were the hum of the engines and the waves against the hulls. Around midnight, that routine was shattered. Every radio on all 3 boats suddenly erupted with a piercing static, a hiss that one fisherman later said felt alive. Then, through the noise, came voices. The words were garbled, a chaotic mix of overlapping whispers, clicks, and guttural sounds, speaking in no language the seasoned fisherman could recognize. It was as if the radio was picking up a broadcast from another world. As they frantically tried to change channels, a crewman on the lead boat shouted and pointed. Lights began glowing beneath the ocean's surface. They weren't the familiar soft glow of bioluminescence. These were bright, distinct orbs of blue and white light, pulsing in unison. They moved with impossible speed and precision, darting in geometric patterns beneath the 3 boats, seemingly communicating with each other. One fisherman described them as like stars trapped under the sea, flying in formation. A cold dread washed over the crews. This wasn't natural. They were witnessing unidentified submerged objects, or USOs. The fleet captain gave the order to pull up anchor and run. As their engines strained, The mysterious chatter continued to fill the airwaves, the lights pacing them from below. When they finally reached the safety of San Juan's port, the exhausted and terrified men swore they had been chased. Official reports would later list the incident as unusual atmospheric interference and a rare convergence of bioluminescent squid. But the fishermen had another word for the trench that night: haunted. In 2009, a corporate pilot was flying a small Learjet from Nassau to Miami. He was a veteran with thousands of flight hours, a man who trusted his instruments and his training above all else. The route was a routine puddle jump, a short flight he had completed hundreds of times in perfect weather. But this flight would challenge his entire understanding of reality. Midway through his route, an anomaly appeared. The sky ahead, which should have been clear, began to darken. But this was no storm front. A bizarre, rolling tunnel of gray mist seemed to open directly in his flight path, a vortex-like hole punched in the sky. With nowhere else to go and no time to divert, he held his course and flew straight into it. The moment he entered, the world went wrong. The air inside felt thick, heavy, and strangely electric. His instruments flickered erratically, his GPS lost its signal, and his magnetic compass spun wildly, useless. A low, vibrational hum filled the cockpit, a sound he had never heard his jet make. For what felt like an eternity, but was likely less than 5 minutes, he was flying blind in a world without rules. Then, just as suddenly as it began, he burst back into clear, sunlit skies. Miami was visible on the horizon. He landed without incident, relieved but deeply shaken. It was only when he was filing his post-flight logs that he noticed the terrifying impossibility. The journey, which has an absolute minimum flight time of 35 minutes gate to gate, had taken him only 25. Air traffic control in Miami confirmed it. They told him his jet had vanished from their radar for a gap of nearly 10 minutes, only to reappear hundreds of miles ahead of schedule. His own watch, his onboard clocks, and even his cell phone all disagreed on the time. He had somehow gained 10 minutes. This phenomenon, a classic Bermuda Triangle theory known as a time slip, had been a legend to him. Now, it was his reality. The pilot kept flying after that day, but he never spoke of the 10 minutes he lost and gained in the sky. In the spring of 2013, the Caribbean Majesty, a luxury cruise liner, was gliding through the calm waters of the Bahamas on a moonlit night. Guests were on deck, enjoying the warm sea breeze and the live band playing by the pool. The atmosphere was one of modern comfort and relaxation. Then, several passengers noticed it. Off the port side, another ship was sailing parallel to them. But something was deeply wrong. It was a dark, older-looking vessel with the tall, tilted smokestacks and sharp bow of an early 20th century liner. It showed no lights. It made no sound. It didn't even appear on the cruise ship's advanced radar system. It was simply a massive, shadowy silhouette cutting through the water, a black void against the starry sky. As more people gathered to watch, a collective unease settled over the deck. The ship seemed to be keeping pace with them, a silent, spectral escort. Then, without warning, it began to fade. It didn't sail away. It grew translucent, like a projection on smoke, the stars behind it becoming visible through its hull. Within 30 seconds, it had dissolved completely into the night air. The captain, trying to prevent panic, dismissed it as an optical illusion or a trick of the moonlight on a distant cloud bank. But dozens of witnesses, including 2 off-duty crew members, insisted it was real, solid, and undeniably there. Maritime historians point out that several vessels from that era, including the massive collier USS Cyclops, vanished in the triangle without a trace. Could the passengers of the Caribbean Majesty have witnessed its spectral echo, a ghost ship forever adrift on its final, doomed course, briefly crossing paths with our own time? In the 1970s, long before the advent of modern deep-sea mapping, a team of divers exploring near the Bahamas claimed to have stumbled upon something that could rewrite history. A sonar on their research vessel returned a reading that was too big, too perfect, to be a natural formation. Intrigued, they mounted a dive. As they descended into the blue gloom, a shape began to resolve itself from the depths. It was a massive pyramid, resting on the seafloor at a depth of 200 feet. The divers reported back in awe and disbelief. Unlike rough stone ruins, this structure appeared impossibly smooth, almost glass-like, reflecting their dive lights with a strange internal energy. It had 4 sharp, perfectly defined edges, a square base, and proportions eerily similar to the Great Pyramid of Giza. Some even claimed to have seen large openings in its side, as if it were hollow. The news of a potential crystal pyramid caused a brief sensation, echoing the prophecies of psychic Edgar Cayce, who spoke of a great power crystal near Bimini that once belonged to the lost city of Atlantis. But before any official survey could be funded or a proper scientific expedition mounted, a series of powerful storms swept the area. When the team later tried to relocate the coordinates, they found nothing. The funding evaporated, and the story was dismissed as a hoax or a misidentification of a natural rock formation. Still, the question remains: was it just a story? Or did those divers discover evidence of a civilization long before ours, an advanced culture whose secrets, and perhaps whose power source, now lie hidden in the deep, fueling the very mystery of the Bermuda Triangle itself? So what do you think is out there, in that empty space on the map? What secrets does the ocean hold in its darkest depths? Let me know your theory in the comments below.